Welcome back to the 30th episode of Critically Incorrect. I'm joined today by Charlie and Justin, if you both wanted to say hi.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
So yeah, might be one of the more important episodes, this year of the podcast. It's E3 week, and yeah, we have a lot to discuss this week. On top of that, we're going to give you our impression slash review of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart at the very end, so make sure to stick around for that. But as we start out each week, I do want to quickly remind you, to give us any thoughts, feedback, topic suggestions, any of the sort, leave it, of course, in the comment section down below, or click the link to make our way to our Discord server. But with that being said, Charlie and Justin, I imagine I know what you guys have been playing, but as we always start off this podcast with, what have you guys been playing for the past, week?
I guess I'll start.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ratchet has been sort of my main game for the week. I've put about 9 hours into the game so far. I haven't beaten it, but that has sort of been the main thing I've been playing. Aside from that, it's been typical multiplayer stuff, playing some like League of Legends, some more Battlefield as well, actually, this week. Honestly, that's about it. I've been very busy with work this week, so I haven't had much time to sit down and play stuff. Oh, and Chivalry 2, that came out, I think last week or the week before, and I've been playing that with some people from work, and that's been a lot of fun. But aside from that, that's about it for me.
Nice. What about you, Justin?
Right. I've actually feel like I've played quite a lot this week. Obviously, like Charlie, um, Ratchet and Clank. I've been playing that. I'm about like 10 hours in. I have beaten the main story. Just because I'm one of those guys. Whenever I play games, I love going through the main story and then doing the side stuff after. I just can't help it. Like everyone, I don't know. Everyone else always like goes through the side stuff. Gradually makes their way through the story, but me, I like just going through the story. I need to find out what happens to the main characters. So yeah, I've already beaten the story. I guess we'll talk more later about our impressions and everything, but yeah, overall I enjoyed the game. Other than that, I've been playing some multiplayer stuff as well. I've been playing more CS:GO, some Rocket League. I tried out Dead by Daylight on PC. um Oh yeah, and also what's it called? I already beat Resident Evil 2. I started that a few days ago and I beat it, so that was good. Um, yeah, think that's pretty much it.
Nice. Like you guys, I've also been playing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Me and Charlie are in like the same area. So yeah, I definitely try to aim to beat that within the next few days. I've honestly had time to beat it. I've just been taking my time through the game. I played like pretty much an hour each day, just slowly going through it. And yeah, we'll talk more about our thoughts on it. But yeah, so far it's really cool. Besides that, I did try out the new Dead by Daylight update on PS5 because they added some Resident Evil characters in, which is really, really neat. It's always a game I like to play with friends. I played like a match of CSGO with Justin and carried him. So yeah, still got that after a few months of being rusty. And besides that, I think that's it. Yeah, mainly just been playing Ratchet, and we'll probably be doing that for the next few days. And yeah, besides that, we did forget one game last week that did come out. So there was nothing this week, but last week there was Game Builder Garage. This is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. I think a lot of you guys know what this game is, but it's essentially Nintendo's kind of like programming for kids, right? So think like a very scaled down version of Dreams, just kind of like an entry point to get kids into programming. So yeah, that came out last week on Friday. But of course, the last week all gaming news has essentially been in the form of E3, so we're pretty much just going to go straight through all the conferences. Last week, Charlie and Justin and I actually no, Justin wasn't there, just me and wait, were you there, Justin? Yeah, you did
For what?
you came back for the Summer Game
Summer Game
Fest, right?
Fest?
Yeah,
That's like the only one I watched
the only
live.
one you watched, right? But essentially,
Yeah.
besides that, we haven't given you our thoughts on anything. So we're gonna probably go in order based on the way we watched it, right? So we'll start with the next press conference after that. So Ubisoft. So I guess we'll go through the list of essentially our highlights, right, and what we thought about the press conference. So I guess Charlie, you could start us off with Ubisoft. How'd you like the conference games that stuck out to you?
Yeah, for me, I think Ubisoft was a pretty strong conference. I think they showed a lot that I was actually really into. I think obviously the big ones for like me and Brand specifically was stuff like Mario and Rabbids, like the sequel. We really wanted to see that. I think it's a shame that it's next year and we didn't see too much, but from what we did see, it did look really cool with some nice changes to the gameplay and stuff. Same with Riders Republic. That was a really surprising one for me. Like it looked interesting when they showed it, what, a year or two ago at this point. And I thought it looks really cool. But I really like the showing here. It seems like it's gonna scratch that itch of like an arcadey sports game because there isn't really anything like that right now. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That's coming out in September, so that's gonna be great. But aside from that, obviously they showed stuff like the Avatar game and things, which look cool. But like they spent so much time on like Rainbow Six Extraction at the start that really put me off. But I think overall the rest of the conference was pretty strong from them.
Nice, nice. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I thought the Ubisoft conference was decent. I didn't really have any like crazy expectations from them or anything like that. But yeah, Riders Republic looks cool. I guess Rainbow Six Extraction does as well. I don't know. There's just like some cool, I guess, multiplayer games that I'm looking forward to from them. Just because I've been playing a lot more multiplayer games with friends recently, and I think like as I said, Riders Republic and Rainbow Six might be kind of cool to play with friends. So, yeah, nothing crazy. I'm not like super excited for anything like that's coming out from them, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, my thoughts essentially kind of mimic what Charlie said. Mario Rabbids, I'm so happy that was announced. That was actually one of my predictions, so it was really cool to see I got that right. Yeah, very, very cool that we got, that finally revealed, just because, that original game was like one of my favorite games on the Switch. Such a good strategy game. Does suck that it is coming out next year, but nonetheless, hopefully it's like an early 2022 title. Riders Republic looks really cool. Yeah, it just continues to look like a game that'd be very fun to play with friends, right? Comes out on my birthday too, so that's really cool. So definitely we'll pick that up probably. Extraction does look really disappointing. I don't think I've talked to anyone that's like really excited about that game. It essentially looks like just an extra game mode to Rainbow Six Siege that's being charged for $60, which is crazy. Yeah, just there's not even like a beta or anything. I don't think that's announced that can like even persuade me otherwise to play it. So unless they do something like that, that's definitely gonna be a pass from me. And then the Avatar game, I really couldn't really care less about that universe. So yeah, it was a solid showcase. I think if you came in with like the right expectations, you came out probably happy. I don't know. Obviously, people always every year want a new Splinter Cell, and for good reason. They should be making a Splinter Cell. But nonetheless, yeah, it's yet another year where Ubisoft's quiet on that. So very sad. So yeah, I guess yeah, that was our Ubisoft press conference. I guess if you guys, we'll go over our rankings afterwards and we go over all of it. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one, which is Xbox. So I think this one is probably, in most people's eyes, probably the best showcase, at E3 this year. So I guess I'll go over the quick announcements here before we go, around. So Starfield was finally showed off. That got a release date for November 11th, 2022. Other games that were noteworthy was finally we got to see more games, announced that we saw last year a bit. So we saw more of Halo Infinite. We saw the announcement of Redfall, which is essentially Arcane Leon, right? Or is it what is it? Arcane. It's like
Austin. Arcane
Austin.
Austin.
Gotcha. So Arcane Austin, the creators of Prey, we finally saw their new IP coming exclusive to Xbox, which is essentially like a Wolverine or like werewolves and not Wolverine, werewolves and vampires. It's actually coming out next year, like early next year apparently. So or no summer next year. So that one was probably one of my most anticipated. Other noteworthy announcements was like Outer Worlds 2, Sea of Thieves finally got like a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover, and ultimately just a lot of games there. I think other ones were like Stalker 2, which isn't necessarily going to be exclusive, but still like limited console exclusive, right? So yeah, really cool showing there. But if you guys wanted to go into specific titles that interested you, Charlie, start us off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they started the show with Starfield, which I think was an interesting choice. I think most people thought they were going to end with that. It getting a date as well was kind of surprising, but I get what they went with for that date. It's meant to be 11 years directly after Skyrim, so it's got the same date, just instead of 2011, it's 2022. So I think that looked pretty interesting, but obviously want to see some gameplay and stuff from that one. I think the most disappointing thing for me there was Halo. I really thought they were going to do a really big blowout and show so much of the campaign and multiplayer and really convince people that were doubting it why it's so much better now, and they really didn't do that. They showed a very small snippet of single player stuff that didn't really show much difference. And then obviously they showed a trailer for multiplayer, but personally I didn't think it looked amazing. Obviously it didn't get a date, which I think is a big deal. Like, why does it still not have a date? Like, I don't know what's going on with that game. I think for me at the moment, I'm now starting to think that the multiplayer will come out this year and they'll delay the campaign again. I wouldn't be surprised if the campaign gets delayed to sometime next year, just because it seems like they're having so much trouble with that. But aside from that, I think Redfall was the one that I saw there that looked really promising. I loved Prey. I really liked Dishonored, so I'm really excited to see what that team brings to that kind of like co-op genre. It is like open world, so it gave me kind of like Left 4 Dead vibes, but I don't know if that's what they're doing because it is open world. So interested to see more of that. I think like Forza Horizon 5 also looked pretty interesting, so that's out this year. Hopefully that'll be pretty cool. But then obviously there was a ton of CG stuff like Contraband, Outer Worlds 2, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was a really good showing. I think the first half was a bit stronger because they were sort of pumping through all the Game Pass stuff. I think it was a total of like 27 out of the 30 games there are all on Game Pass day one, which is insane. So I think it was a great showing just to show what their studios are up to and like why it's a good reason to have Game Pass at this point. I think they did a really good job of that.
Yeah. It's also worth mentioning, just real quick before you give your thoughts, Justin, they kind of clarified their plans with Bethesda going forward, so it's pretty obvious after this that essentially all their games are going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC. So like Starfield, which was up in the air, I always said because it is a new IP, it most likely would be next-gen exclusive. I think Elder Scrolls is still up in the air, but I feel like by the time it gets to that, when it's like, probably like, 10 years off, you'd think, or maybe like 7 years away, because I can't imagine they're really in development right now, considering they're working on Starfield. That will most likely be exclusive. Pretty much, essentially expect all Bethesda games going forward to be exclusive. So yeah. With that being said, Charlie or Justin, what'd you think about the Xbox showcase?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent showcase. They showed off some good amount of games that people were looking forward to. Like Charlie said, I think Starfield, I guess, I mean, it is a bit early. It's not coming out until next year, right? So I get that. I get why they, I guess, like, gameplay wasn't shown, but it would have been cool to see, just a bit of gameplay. Yeah, a lot of the other games, like, they're exclusives, at least, I wasn't, like, super interested in. I kind of wanted to see something from, either, like, Hellblade or Perfect Dark, but yeah, I guess we'll see that eventually.
I mean, hey, we got that like an hour ago on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it.
Wait, what?
We got they did like a little behind the scenes with Xbox Studios,
for which
like
game?
an interview for Hellblade. They showed a bit
really?
more behind the scenes development.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out later. I didn't see it. But yeah, all right. Yeah, I guess for me, my personal highlights from the Xbox conference were more the third-party stuff, I guess. Battlefield looked really cool. I don't know. That trailer just looked really awesome. It made me really excited for the new Battlefield. And then I guess my personal favorite was just that they announced a Plague Tale Requiem, just because I loved the first A Plague Tale. Yeah, that looked pretty cool. I'm excited for that, and it's already coming out next year. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess, for my thoughts.
Nice. Yeah, I so like on one hand, I was like really happy with it because of the like sheer amount of games they showed off, but I was like very disappointed in the games like themselves, right? So like Starfield, we've heard about for years now, and like yeah, I knew going in it was going to be a fall 2022 game, but I thought they would show us more than they did. It's just frustrating having this game known for so long, and like all we really got at the showcase was a vague date, which doesn't really mean anything. Like we knew it was going to come out next year, most likely in the fall time. And then the trailer was just obviously like in engine, but it didn't really show too much. It just showed a guy like in the spaceship launching off, and there was like some more behind the scenes that came out a bit afterwards. But yeah, I'm still not completely sold on that game just because I've heard it's like Skyrim in space, and I didn't really like Skyrim, so I don't know if I'll like this, but we'll see. Halo, as Charlie hinted at, this one was crazy to me because they put it like in the middle of the showcase. Like if you didn't know what Halo was and you watched this Xbox conference, you would have thought it was like some small game that didn't really matter as much, yet they like briefly went over it. And yeah, they didn't show us off any campaign. We got like multiplayer trailer like the next day, which looked pretty good, but still haven't really seen much of the campaign. I think the big thing is the date, right? Like, how do we have a date for Starfield, a fall 2022 game, but not for a game that's coming out literally this fall? That's beyond me. Yeah, to be honest, like, I think the big trend this E3 was like a lot of the games that excited me were like the games we actually saw like gameplay for. So things like even like the Sea of Thieves Pirates of the Caribbean crossover got me like more excited than like half these other announcements because I could actually see what it was going to be about. It's going to be about. Yeah, other noteworthy ones were like Stalker 2, that looked really cool. Redfall also looked really, really cool. And Outer Worlds 2 as well. But yeah, Oh yeah, I don't think anyone's mentioned Forza. That looked pretty cool. I mean, Forza's Forza,
Yeah,
right?
I did briefly mention it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one looks really cool. I'll probably pick that up on PC for Game Pass. But yeah, it was a solid showcase. A lot of us kind of expected a lot of the announcements that they made last year weren't going to be here. I imagine next year they have the potential to make a really good conference if they could show off things like Perfect Dark gameplay, Fable gameplay, Hellblade gameplay. Like, make those gameplay demos, please. Like, that's something we didn't really see much this E3. That like we hardly got, but yeah, those still work for me and like gives you a good impression of like what the actual gameplay loop will be like. So yeah, they have high potential for next year. It's a solid showcase though. Definitely probably like in the top
Um,
two. Yeah.
I was just gonna say as well, it was like I don't think they said it during the conference, but afterwards they were kind of like reiterating because a lot of the games they announced for Xbox One as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they've now said that a lot of those games will use cloud streaming to actually run on current gen, which is really odd. So
Mm-hmm.
stuff like Redfall and Starfield, they said they're coming at Xbox One, but they'll be using streaming to actually get them on those consoles because they are next gen only. So I don't know how that's gonna work entirely, whether it will be through like the Xbox game streaming app and they're gonna bring that to console or what. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting note they didn't really bring up during the conference that
Yeah,
I
I saw
thought
that on Twitter
I'd mention.
afterwards. I think another big part is like currently xCloud when you're like streaming it to your phone or other devices, right? It uses like an Xbox One S, but they're gonna be moving that to the
Yeah.
Xbox One or Xbox Series X. So it looks like streaming services for at least, to be able to play next gen games is gonna be like another pitch they do for like, making games accessible for everyone. So you don't need to necessarily invest in the Series X to play those games. You could just stream them to your system. And it's kind of shitty that they kind of already announced them for that system and now it's going to be through like a cloud, solution. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. So yeah, it's a good point to bring up. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty cool showcase. There was definitely some games there that looked really interesting. Like, yeah, Plague Tale. I'm currently downloading like the first one right now on Game Pass because I got to go through that finally,
Ooh,
in
you haven't
preparation for
played
the
that one?
sequel. No, I haven't played it. Not
Oh,
yet.
interesting. It's really good.
Interesting. But yeah, definitely I'm gonna do that. Hopefully. Hey, maybe I'll beat it by next week's podcast, right? That would be pretty cool.
It's
But
pretty short,
anyways,
so
yeah, that's cool. But anyways, we'll move on to the Square Enix press conference. I think a lot of people were disappointed by this one, just because obviously the fan base at Square Enix, right? It's a lot more, Japanese based, and like half this was filled with like Western games like Guardians and like Life is Strange, right? So I guess just go over briefly what they announced because it wasn't terribly much. Finally, Eidos Montreal's next product was announced. It's a Guardians of the Galaxy game. It's actually coming out in October. I forgot the specific date. October 26th, I believe. So yeah, that's going to be coming up fairly soon. It's going to be a single player game, which is really cool. I fully expected this to be like another co-op game, but yeah, you're playing as Peter Quill, Star Lord. So yeah, they showed off like 20 minutes of, it had like a 20-minute segment at least full of either like trailers slash gameplay. So yeah, a lot of there. Avengers got more, information on like the next few months of what that looks like. I think the Wakanda expansion got dated for August. Babylon's Fall was showcased yet again. This one looked pretty disappointing to me. Like it looked like a painting, and that's not like a bad art style, right? But it made it like very blurry. Like I was talking about it on stream, it looks like a Switch game. Like it doesn't look fairly good to me. Stranger in Paradise is essentially like this Final Fantasy meets Dark Souls, right? So yeah, this was probably the one you saw on Twitter the most. Like everyone was memeing it, right? Because the main character kept grunting out like, very stereotypical things that you'd hear from like bosses, right? Where he's like, time to like slay chaos and other cringy shit like that. But yeah, nonetheless, that was the thing that they ended off with. And also, what's noteworthy is that actually as a demo, I downloaded that, but I still have yet to play it. So yeah, if you have a PS5, there is a Stranger in Paradise demo. So yeah, I guess, going around in circle again, Charlie, if you wanted to kick us off, what do you think about the showcase that Square did?
Yeah, I think overall it was a pretty weak showcase. For me, like I enjoyed it to an extent because like I really like the look of the Guardians game. I think it looks pretty interesting. It doesn't look like it's gonna blow anyone's mind or anything, but it just looks like a pretty decent 7 to 8 out of 10 game. And we don't get many of those kind of things anymore, so I'm really excited to play that one actually. I think it looked pretty good and captured Guardians pretty well with its own kind of take on the characters and stuff. So that looks really fun. And I was really surprised it was out this year. I was fully expecting just to get like a small trailer and then like 2022, but the fact we got a decent chunk of gameplay and it's out this year is pretty cool. And then obviously like the Avengers stuff and things, like I think the Wakanda expansion looks interesting, and I'll probably dive back into Avengers to try it out. But overall, it was pretty like I wasn't really like blown away by that. And then some of the smaller things, Life is Strange, I'm not really too bothered about. It's not really my kind of thing. Babylon's Fall I thought looked pretty bad. Same with Stranger in Paradise. I didn't think that looked great either. I have downloaded the demo, so I will give it a go at some point. But yeah, it didn't look like what I expected it to look like, and I think that's kind of the mass kind of I thought about the game, really. Like I think most people are a bit confused as to why it looks the way it does, like the main character wearing a t-shirt or whatever.
For that's hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's so random. I don't understand why. But yeah, no, overall I thought it was pretty weak. I think it wasn't too bad for me just because there was stuff that I was interested in, but if you're a fan of like Final Fantasy and stuff, there was not much there other than Stranger in Paradise and then like the first Soldier mobile battle royale game.
And there's like also like the first 6 Final Fantasies are coming to Steam, so like
Oh yeah.
that got like a port. Interestingly enough, they're not coming to Switch, which is really odd. But yeah, nonetheless, that's another weird decision. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Justin? Were you able to watch the Square Enix show?
No, I didn't watch. I did not watch it live, unfortunately. I was busy at work, but I just checked out some of the highlights after. I guess the only thing I honestly was like relatively excited about was the Guardians game. It looked pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a fan of Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy, and also I saw there was like. I love how they tagged it like single player story driven third person game, so I'm like, oh yeah, okay. That's the perfect game for me. It looked like I don't know, some of the sections looked a bit rough, but I guess I don't know, I guess they might clean it up a bit before it comes out. But then again, yeah, it's already coming out in like October, so it's already really soon. And yeah, so that looks pretty good. Yeah, I guess none of the other stuff really interested me too much, so yeah, that's pretty much it honestly for me from the Square Enix conference.
Yeah, so Square Enix, I thought it was a decent show. I definitely was more positive than most people. I do think the pacing was rather weird because like they showed like 20 minutes of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I was very happy that we got a lot of gameplay right, and I was happy about the release date. That was like one of the bigger surprises that we got at E3. But like the gameplay they showed was kind of weird. Like they were fighting cubes. Like I was like, is this the most interesting enemy design you have in the game? You're showing at an E3 demo. And then like they were talking for like 5 minutes walking to their objective. It does have really cool elements, like you can create different choices, right? So like you'll go through like different scenarios based on like who you choose to sell in like a certain mission. Not sure if that will have like dramatic differences, right? I can't imagine it will, but nonetheless it's cool. Yeah, it's definitely doing a lot of better things than the Avengers. So like I think the character models look good, which is something that Avengers had like a really rough time with. Them focusing on Peter Quill as first and foremost playing as him while controlling the other characters kind of through like command base is pretty neat. So probably will be more polished, right? And you can have more depth on Peter. Yeah, looks really cool. Besides that, like the other stuff they showed didn't really interest me too much. Like we got more information on Life is Strange, but like it looked like pretty much like the same trailer we got last, conference, right? And then things like Babylon's Fall, I already said that looked kind of rough. Hopefully it turns out to be better than that because Platinum's really good, but yeah, that did not sell on me on it at all. And then Stranger in Paradise, I thought that was hilarious, and I want to play the demo. So that one looked funny. So yeah, it was a all right showcase. Kind of what I expected, I guess. And it's also probably worth mentioning that games like Final Fantasy 16 probably will be saved for like a Sony event, you imagine. I thought it was like 50-50 whether or not it showed up here, just because when Final Fantasy 7 Remake was, exclusive to PS4, well, it still is, right? But when they showed it off at E3, they still showed it off at Square show. So I was like, that was kind of weird, but I definitely think we'll see it in the coming weeks at like some Sony event, because it's pretty much rumored right now that Sony is going to have an event like in early July or something like that. Just sometime, in the next few weeks to, a month, right? So we'll wait for that. But overall, it's a solid showcase. I guess we'll move on to our last showcase. This was actually my favorite one. Yeah, Nintendo. So Nintendo had their 40-minute direct focus on software, and they announced quite a bit of new stuff. So I guess I'll go through some of the announcements. We got a good look at Shin Megami Tensei 5. So this got a really cool trailer. And yeah, got a release date for November 12th. We got like 20 minutes of, raw gameplay. Oh, I say raw gameplay, like treehouse gameplay. So like there's people playing it and talking over it. But nonetheless, really, really cool there. Metroid Dread was announced. This one was interesting because apparently this game was like in development like 15 years ago or something, but it has ended up getting canceled and now it's being brought back. I think the team that's making this is the same team that worked on the other Metroid 2D game that was on the 3DS, but I could be wrong. Nonetheless, this was like another big surprise because it is coming out in October, so very quick, announcement to release. Other notable announcements was like Mario Party. I want to say, what was it called? Like All Stars or some sort of like Superstars. Yeah. That got announced for October. So this one looks like it's going to be correcting a lot of the wrongs that they did with, Super Mario Party. Essentially, they already said like in the trailer, it has online play for all modes, has quite a few, amount of boards. Cause I think this is like essentially like collecting a bunch of like the classic Super Mario Party mini games and stuff. So that was cool. Breath of the Wild 2, that was probably the biggest one here, right? That got a new trailer. The trailer didn't like sell me the most. I think it had like a lot of cool elements, but I also think they're being very misleading. So there's been like quite a bit of theories online, right, about this new trailer, and like if you reverse the trailer's music, you can hear the original theme, right? Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it. I definitely want to see more of it, and I'm not surprised it's not coming out this year. It's coming out next year, which they've been like clarifying they're aiming for it. So I'm guessing fall, right? But yeah, nonetheless, it looked really cool. So I guess starting off with you, Charlie, what'd you think about everything they showed?
Yeah. So for me, I wasn't a massive fan of this conference. Like I enjoyed some of the stuff there, but for me with Nintendo, it's very difficult for them to please me, mainly because they do such a variety of games that it's very hit or miss whether it's for me. And it was just this conference just wasn't for me. Like most of the games here weren't for me as a player. I think the highlights were obviously Smash, but like. I think the character was very dull. I think they could have picked a lot better characters than what was his name, Kazuya from Tekken. So I think that's kind of like a meh character. Even like Sakurai himself didn't look that excited about it. So I think that was probably one where Nintendo kind of told him he had to do a Tekken character. So yeah, that one seemed okay. Metroid Dread looks really cool. I kind of hope that they're gonna at least port over the old Metroid games onto Switch just so I can play them before Dread, because this is meant to like end the story of the 2D games. And they only did obviously a remake of Super Metroid on 3DS with Samus Returns, so there's no other way to play like the original Metroid or Metroid. I can't remember what the third one's called, and then obviously Metroid Fusion as well. They never did ports for those games, so I kind of hope that they'll port those over to Switch, even if it's just not remastered, just port them straight over just so I can play those before Dread. But knowing Nintendo, they might not do that. And then the Zelda trailer looked pretty cool. Overall, I was a little bit disappointed with the lack of stuff they showed in that trailer. They didn't show much at all. Again, no title, and they've since said that they do have a title. They're just holding off on sharing it, which I think is really dumb, and I don't get why they're doing that. Obviously, they said 2022, then they said aiming for 2022, so I don't think it's out next year, which will suck, but knowing the history of Breath of the Wild and stuff, I doubt it's out next year. I'm gonna guess it's a spring 2023 game. But yeah, other than that, there wasn't really anything else there for me. There's a lot of smaller games, and like SMT is not kind of my kind of thing, and they had a big focus on that. So yeah, overall for me it was a pretty weak showing, but I'm sure for a lot of other people it was really good. So
Yeah. I can be very quick. I didn't watch the conference. Just yeah, I was busy, and honestly, I don't really care too much about the Nintendo games. But um, I don't know. I took a quick look at the Zelda trailer. It looked decent. I still have yet to play Breath
God
of the
damn,
Wild.
dude.
I have it. I have it.
Game of the generation, right there.
Have it yet to play it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the Nintendo games never really interest me too much. I guess I don't know. Like they have their audience. I guess I'm just not really part of that. I don't know. Their games don't really interest me too much. But yeah, it's cool for all those people that enjoy it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. I guess like Brandon, you enjoyed the conference a lot. So, um, yeah, I guess that's cool for you guys.
Yeah, to go over
Um,
my thoughts on it, like, I think the reason why I liked it is just because the games they showed there were, I mean, like, kind of like what Charlie said, right? Like, they were focused on me. Like, a lot of times, Nintendo will have conferences, right? And we'll get, like, new Mario games and shit like that, where it's, like, very casual based. Getting a new Metroid game and getting, like, a focus on SMT. These are, like, the games that, like, I really like to play on my Switch. So, just more hardcore series like that was really cool. And then obviously Breath of the Wild 2, which looked really, it sold me more than the original trailer because obviously we saw more of the world, right? They said like they're focusing more on the skies. But besides that, there wasn't terribly much. There was like a new WarioWare game announced and like Super Mario Party or Mario Party All Stars, whatever. But I think the thing that helped was like the fact that these directs tend to show a lot of gameplay, right? So that was like a thing that it's like even if I'm watching a trailer on a game I don't care about, like they're showing gameplay and it's like very quick. While like other E3 trends lately this year has been like vague trailers and just like release windows and stuff like that. So it was nice to get like a lot of surprises from Nintendo, and then a lot of them coming out this year alongside like raw gameplay. Like I think Metroid has like 40 minutes of gameplay already online, which I'm not watching, but it's nice to have, right? So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. I could definitely see why people weren't terribly excited, right? Besides the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, there wasn't terribly much to be excited for, I guess I could see. But yeah. Anyways, I guess as we went over all the conferences, I guess it's time to rank them. So, we're not going to like really score them. We're just going to kind of like talk about where we think each one lies, right? Like if you're doing like a tier list. So I guess we'll work like bottom up, right? So we'll include things like Summer Game Fest as well and like Devolver. And then I guess Charlie, if you want to mention Gearbox as well. So I guess what do you think was the weakest showing out of all the conferences this year? Like, I guess we can all put a vote in. So, Charlie, what would you say was your weakest?
For me, it was Square Enix.
Square
I
Enix.
put at the bottom. That was my weakest.
Justin, what about you?
uh, hmm. I'll just say Gearbox because that was pretty bad, right?
Okay, well, I'm gonna say Gearbox. If we're including
Yeah,
Gearbox,
I'm gonna put
then...
Gearbox. Just because that was so bad. So I guess we'll talk a bit about why we thought Gearbox was the worst, right? Because we don't really talk about it here because there's nothing to talk about. It was so cringe, but it was also like hilarious because it was so bad. It was one of those where it was so bad it was funny. Like Randy was on, the set for Borderlands, the movie, right? And like he's talking to people very enthusiastically, and like no one there really seemed to care. Yeah, and then obviously the history of Randy makes it even funnier, right? We were like cracking jokes on stream. But then like even the announcements, like what was that one game? Like even though it's been announced,
World 3 is
oh
now
well, how
in
do I forget that
development.
name? Even though it got showed off 3 times, like they showed the same trailer 3 times to get the point across. Like at a certain point, you don't have enough to warrant like a show. So like just don't do it. But nonetheless, yeah, it happened and it was terrible. So yeah, nothing really else. Did I forget something that you guys want to add it on to that?
Oh, and
No, it's
obviously
just bad.
Godfall's coming to PS4,
Oh
which I
yeah,
think is
that's true.
hilarious.
Which is the game that started off the whole, next generation only, right?
It's so only
Yeah.
available on next gen, and then it's like it flops.
Until it
Alright, it's
flops,
gonna
when
be
we'll make
PS4
it
soon.
possible. I think it was even like leaked like around like the time of launch. So they definitely had this in mind for a while. They just wanted to,
Yeah.
They knew it was gonna flop.
yeah, and they just wanted all those, install bases that are on PS4. That will help the sales for sure.
And what's even worse is you now get a free upgrade to PS5. So all those people that paid like $70 for it could have just waited and got the PS4 one for like however much it's gonna be, and then got a free upgrade.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that was funny as hell. That was like that was probably the biggest announcement there, which is hilarious. Is Godfall coming to PS4? Like, what else did they show there that was like noteworthy? Like the new Borderlands spinoff was already announced at Summer Game Fest and stuff like that.
And
like,
they didn't show anything new for it.
yeah,
which I
it's
think is
crazy.
dumb.
Like, why would you hold a conference for that? Like, I wouldn't. If I was making that press conference, I would at least held that for my press conference. Like, if you don't have anything else to show it, like that's crazy. Yeah, it was terrible. Just don't do it again. So I guess, yeah, what did you guys think was like the second worst then after that? Charlie,
Square Enix.
Square Enix, Justin, what would you say?
Um, I don't know, Nintendo, just because I don't care about. I don't care
Holy
about
shit,
anything that they showed.
we're not putting Nintendo at second worst.
Alright,
I'll
don't
say
know,
Square
Enix,
Enix. Yeah, I think we'll agree on Square Enix. Yeah, I mean we talked about this press conference already, right? So yeah, essentially it's just like the pacing of it. The games they showed there weren't terribly interesting, and the showings weren't like crazy impressive, right? Kind of self-explanatory. Yeah, it wasn't like terrible, but yeah, it wasn't terribly a good showcase either. So yeah, with that being said, we're like in the middle of our list. I think the remaining ones we have are Ubisoft, Xbox, and Nintendo and Summer Game Fest, right? So those four.
And Devolver as
And
well.
Devolver as well. Okay, so what would you put next if you were doing a ranking, Charlie?
Next for me would be Nintendo. That would be my next one.
Justin, I'm guessing Nintendo as well. All right, well, I guess it's like a majority no matter what I say, right? So we'll put Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, I personally put them at the top of my list, or at least there with Xbox, because, you know, they showed off gameplay and they surprised me this year. But yeah, I could see why. It was definitely, you know, very specific audience there. You know, nothing terribly impressive. So yeah, I could see that. And then I think we got Summer Game Fest, Ubisoft, and Xbox. I'm guessing I know what you guys are going to put next.
Devolver.
And Devolver.
So I put Devolver next just because like I enjoyed it for what it was, but they didn't show really any of the games they announced like last year, which was a shame because there was some stuff I really wanted to see and they didn't show it there. But it was still like a funny conference as always, so
yeah.
I still had fun watching it.
What would you say, Justin?
Yeah, I didn't watch Devolver, so I mean.
Okay, I guess we'll put Devolver there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say like also as well. Like I don't know, it was very funny the first few years, and it still is funny, but like I don't know. I feel like each year it like slowly gets worse as you kind of already know what to expect, right? Like they kind of make the same kind of jokes, right? Each year, and like it's a different theme, which is interesting as well. Yeah, the games look cool though. Just like a lot of them that were like announced that are coming out like within the next few weeks. So definitely got to look out for those on PC. But yeah, it was a cool showcase. And it's always fun how they like create websites that are like legit to coincide with like the conference that people are going to be on, you know. So really cool there. Anyways, we got Ubisoft, Xbox, and Summer Game Fest, I believe. So what would you say, Charlie?
Uh,
Summer Game Fest. What would you say, Justin?
Yeah.
Summer Game
Probably
Fest.
same.
I'd probably say the same as well. Just because,
Just
yeah.
because like.
Mhm.
No, I was just gonna say like there wasn't really anything until the only really big thing that came out of it was Elden Ring, which was like you know
yeah.
I got a lot of people.
I'd say the
excited, but
paying
other
for
than
me
that,
as well. Like it was a
wasn't really
2 hour
anything.
showcase, and like we got like a big announcement
Yeah.
at the very beginning and a very big announcement at the end, and like throughout the whole entire middle, it was just like games that no one really cared about terribly much. Evil Dead looked cool. Back for Blood got like, you know, a cool announcement there as well, but like very far and few between actual good announcements. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That being said, though, Elden Ring, let's fucking go. That looks great. But yeah. And now we got Ubisoft and Xbox. I think I know where we're putting what. Charlie, you could just say it.
Yeah, so Ubisoft.
Yeah, Justin, you're going to say the same as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, Ubisoft second. I guess I'll just speak for me. I think a lot of cool announcements were like what Mario Rabbids and Riders Republic. It also wasn't like a terribly long showcase, right? It was like, was it like an hour or less than an hour? I'm not sure, but it was like
It was just I think it was just over an hour, right?
just over an hour. Cool. Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, there was also like that Rocksmith Plus game. Yeah, it wasn't a bad showcase at all. Definitely had some cool, you know, announcements there, but nothing that compares to Xbox probably. So yeah. Do you guys want to talk about Ubisoft a bit more? I mean, you kind of already did.
I
but...
mean, yeah, Ubisoft's I think was pretty strong. Like I enjoyed it overall. I think they had pretty good pacing throughout, aside from Rainbow Six at the start, which they spent so much time on. But I think everything else they had paced pretty well. I would have liked to see some more like Mario and Rabbids and stuff, and like from some of the other games they've got coming up, you know, like Prince of Persia, the new Division game, that kind of stuff. But they're most likely saving that for another Ubisoft Connect in like September, like they did last time. So yeah, I think overall it was just a pretty straightforward conference. There was no kind of like beating around the bush. They got to everything pretty quick. So
It's also nice that they kind of like clarified expectations. Like, if you were disappointed, it's kind of hard to figure out why, because they came out with like Prince of Persia, came out and said they weren't going to be there. Like, yeah, they need to do that more often for press conferences. Like, yeah, that was nice to see. Justin?
Yeah, I already mentioned earlier. Like I thought it was decent, nothing too crazy. I honestly thought like the fact that it wasn't too long was pretty good, just because like one of the things I hate about just all these conferences, like when they kind of I guess like overstay their welcome, they like
because
try and make
there's
it
like
as long as
there's like a
possible
difference
for
between having
all
a
these
good
games.
show and like having good games to show. Like, you can have like not the best games to show, but if like you have a good presentation and pacing, that can go like dramatically in your favor.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely agree there.
Yeah, like I guess pacing was decent. It just once again I don't like it when they fill it. fill their conferences with tons of stuff that people don't care about. So yeah, decent show. But nothing insane, you know.
Yeah, and then our last one is Xbox. So yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it, right? This was like the showcase that had pretty much all the big games, right? So we had like Bethesda and Ubisoft, or Bethesda and Xbox there. Finally got to see more of Starfield, Stalker 2, just a lot of games there. There was a ton of games there. So yeah, definitely bound to have like a game there that excited you, right? So probably why we put it there. Yeah, it was a good showcase. I think it was like definitely one of their better E3 shows. So yeah, that's definitely why I put it there as well. What did you guys think?
Yeah, like as we already said, like I really enjoyed the show. I think the first half was a bit stronger. The thing is though, like it's not like the strongest E3 thing I've ever seen, but everything else was so weak this year that it was kind of hard not to beat it.
Yeah.
So I think next year's going to be really interesting because like I think I said last week before we watched it, but I think next year's going to be a much bigger show for them because they'll have a lot more games that are ready to show gameplay for, and so they can actually have some full-on demos rather than a lot of these CG trailers we've got on this year and last year. So yeah, but overall I thought it was a pretty good show.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that was our ranking
Yep.
of our E3 conferences. I think overall, I think we were pretty disappointed by this E3. Like this was not exciting at all for me, at least. Like it's almost like last year felt like the last year almost was better than this because at least we had like the PS5 event that announced like so many games, and like Xbox at least had like cool announcements like Fable, right, that they announced and shit like that. But this year was kind of like for like an actual
I
E3.
think I think the main problem this year was that a lot of it was forced under the E3 umbrella, and so a lot of rather than last summer where everything was spread out, you had everything in the same week, and I don't think a lot of the companies even really had much to show, and I think that was the biggest problem. I think if we'd done like a full summer Game Fest thing and spread it out, it might have worked a bit more in the company's favors. But the fact that they were all kind of jammed together and there wasn't much really like I think that was the big problem. But you never know. Sony may come out in a few weeks and they'll just, knock everyone out of the park. So we'll see.
Yeah, Sony's definitely due to show us something. I've been saying it, like we already have Ratchet out right now. Like what do we have to look forward to for the PS5? We have fucking God of War and Horizon, which are both kind of like black boxes right now because we don't have dates for either. So yeah, definitely. Hopefully we get something like that in the coming weeks. But yeah, besides that, let's talk about actual games now. We played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for the last week or so, and definitely, have some thoughts about it. So I guess Charlie, if you wanted to start us off on your thoughts of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I think you're like what 8-9 hours in or something, right?
Yeah, so I'm just over 9 hours in. I think my PlayStation profile says 9 hours, so I'm probably at like 9.5 or something. I'm at a similar point to Bran. I just went to a different planet first, so I think we're near the end of the game. I don't really
I don't
know,
know.
but
Yeah.
I want to say I'm getting towards the end of the game at this point. I've been having a lot of fun with it, going and doing all the collectibles as I go along. Overall, it's actually pretty like easy to get. Like I think I've got most of the collectibles just on my own.
Same.
There's been like two or three where I've had to use like the cards just because like I had no clue where they were and I didn't want to be like zooming around on a planet for half an hour trying to find the thing. So overall, like I'm really enjoying like the hunting on planets. The story's actually really good so far. I think the only one thing that's kind of like disappointing, but there's not been much they can do about it, is like right at the start of the game you've got like Captain Quark and stuff, and sadly it's not the same voice actor because he did have a really bad case of COVID and he's lost a lot of his memory and stuff. So
Shoot.
unfortunately he couldn't actually voice the character, which I think sucks. And it is kind of noticeable when you have gone from the PS3 ones onto this one, which is a real shame. But other than that, like I think it's really strong. It's definitely my favorite Ratchet game from what I've played. I'm really enjoying the story. The gameplay is really fun. The gunplay is so good, and they used like the controller so much better than they did with Miles Morales. Like the triggers are done so well with all the different guns and things, like making every single one feel unique. And it's some of the new mechanics like the dash and stuff that they've added in, and obviously the riffs are so good. There's so many moments where like I'm playing it and you're like, yeah, this is a next gen game. Like some of the races you can do on like the
Oh my
speedle
god,
bug
dude, that's
things.
nuts. That's
Like
crazy.
when you do one of those and you're going through the different portals to all the different planets and it's just instantaneous is insane. The fact that they're able to do that and they're loading in an entire new map. It's not like it's there and you're cutting to it. They literally say when you go through that, you're loading a new thing right then and there. And I think that's crazy. And even when you're just in the world, when you pull open those portals and sort of walk between them, like it's insane how it does that. But yeah, the tech behind the game is crazy.
It's nuts.
But yeah, overall, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's probably my favorite PS5 exclusive so far. Not that there is much for it to go against, but yeah, I'm having a blast with it, and it's for sure definitely worth the $70.
Yeah. What about you, Justin? You beat the game, so what'd you think?
Yeah, so I beat the game in about I would say like 9.5 hours. As I mentioned earlier, I'm just one of those guys that likes to go through the main story before doing a lot of the side stuff. So, yeah, man, what can I say? Like I really enjoyed it. Pretty much right from the start, I was having a blast. Like as you progress through the story, you unlock new weapons. It basically creates more like possibilities when you're in combat or whatever. I love the new, the gameplay additions that they added. Like as Charlie said, the dashing. You also have the rifts that you can teleport through if you see, or like if you're in combat, someone's shooting you, or like you're in a tight spot, you need to get out of that. You can, like rift to another area if you see one. Yeah, it's just like I don't know, it's just this feeling that you get when like the combat's so crazy, and then you have like all these possibilities you can like pull up, and different combinations of weapons and stuff. Like what I like one of the like coolest combinations that I love doing is I don't know what the gun's called, but it's like the sprinkler one.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
like
sprinkler.
basically like
Oh, the
freezes us.
topiary.
So I love
sprinkler,
throwing that down, and then I pull out like a bunch of the Mr. Fungi and the Glove of Doom, basically like spawn all these bots out. And then the enemies get distracted by those guys, and I just pull out like my the lightning gun, just like zap everyone. They're getting electrocuted. I don't know, pull out the shotgun, just blast them. So yeah, as I said, like the gun combat and everything is really good. I love the variety and different gameplay. You have like the grinding on the rails. You have the races on the, I don't know what the animal's called, the snail thing or whatever. Like just
beetle
like
thing.
going through, yeah, the beetle. That's really fun too. Boss fights have been really fun. I don't know, I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, there's a lot of side stuff I still need to do because like I've barely done any of that. So I'm definitely gonna be doing more of that in the coming week. I guess in terms of like the story, like my only issue with it, and I'm not gonna go into spoiler territory, but I guess the only issue for me is kind of like you get a lot of development with Ratchet and like I guess like the like the new bot that you kind of run into.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
you get good development with those guys, and then obviously Clank, Clank gets separated from Ratchet, so he ends up finding Rivet. And there's good development there as well. I just think the only issue is that like you don't really get to see anything between like Rivet and Ratchet, which is like they're like kind of like the equals of each other from like different universes. So I would have hoped that they would actually had some like cool interactions together, and you obviously get like a few, like they see each other for like a few scenes, but like in terms of actual interactions with each other, it's really not much. And the story always finds a way to like, once they get them together for like a quick like a minute or two, it finds a way to separate them. They're never really together at like.
I imagine it's probably
like, a
hard
scene
because
for
like
too
you
long.
can't really play together because I don't
Exactly,
know.
yeah. I know why they did that. I
That's
would have
weird.
loved to see like at least one section where they were like, like you'd be playing as one of them and you're like fighting enemies, and then you see like on the other side of the map like they're fighting someone too.
Mm-hmm.
But like that never really happens. It's always like, you switch between the two. So yeah, I guess that's like my only main issue with the game. Other than that, I like, I enjoyed it a lot, everything about it. As Charlie said, like it's like this is like a true next gen PlayStation game. Just like the insane level of detail and all just everything that you do. Like it's insane how you can like load into another area so fast. Like it's crazy.
For sure. So yeah, leading up to this game, like I definitely was, vocal. Like I didn't like the 2016 game, right? Like everyone seemed to like that game, and I definitely think it's like a fun game to play, but it wasn't like really Ratchet and Clank for me. So like I've been very happy so far with all the charm. Like this game is it's a Ratchet and Clank game full and through. Like the development we're getting between like the characters and the world, and like introducing new characters into this universe, right? Just like the dialogue while you're going through these worlds and stuff is really good, and it's actually building up, and it's like somewhat emotional, right? So I've been very happy with that. Gameplay wise as well, it uses the DualSense way better than Miles Morales, which I'm very happy about. It just shows that the team really cared about that. And then just, cared about Ratchet and Clank. And it's so cool to see this franchise go from like PS2 into where it is now, and how it, uses the PlayStation hardware and changes over time. Yeah, I definitely do have some cons with it. Like, I definitely think that this game is great. Like, if I had to give it like a rating out of 10, which I don't like to do, it's definitely like between a 9 and a 10. Like, it's really good. But there are some cons. So I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but like there is a shared inventory between Rivet and Ratchet, so they play like pretty much identically, and like you're even using the same gadgets. It would have been cool to see them use like different kind of weapons. Like her hammer essentially is exactly just like Ratchet's wrench. They both use exactly the same things. Like if Ratchet gets an upgrade on his like character, right, like you'll get on Rivet automatically as well. So it would have been cool to have them somewhat play differently, but nonetheless I could see why they didn't do that, just because they wanted to like really show the parallels, but still kind of disappointing. There is like, I love the worlds they go to, and like there's so much detail, but my favorite sequences in the game are when I don't know where I'm going. So like there's sequences that are more scripted, right? Where like enemy like Nefarious will like pull you through a portal, and all of a sudden you're like on a different planet. I would have liked to see that more, and like dynamically more in the game. The game is very structured in the way you play it. You're gonna fly to a planet, right? And you know that you're gonna be constantly on that planet. They never really do a part of the game where you're just playing like a linear section, not knowing where you could do. Like when I saw the initial trailer where you go through like 5 portals, right? You're going through these different planets. I think there's a lot of potential there where you could just have like these really cool moments where like you're playing through this level, right? You didn't necessarily fly down there. You just don't know where you could go next. But constantly when I'm flying down planets, I'm like, okay, for the next half hour, I'm going to be on this planet. And it makes sense to go through different portals that are like these little rift worlds, but they're not like crazy, different, right? So it would have been cool to see them do that, but it's still a Ratchet and Clank game. Ratchet and Clank, of course, its fundamentals are flying to these different planets. So I could see why they kept that, but nonetheless, I think this is my favorite Ratchet and Clank game. Like, yeah, it's just so good. It's so fun to play. Like, it's crazy. I was playing like Into the Nexus, leading up to this, and I was playing it on PS Now. It's like 720p, so much input lag, and then you go from that to this, where it's like, beautiful visuals, 60 FPS, dual sense, and a great story in my opinion. It's just I couldn't be happier with this game on a lot of levels. So yeah, they did it. I'm definitely very happy with this game. I feel like I'm a kid again while I'm playing this, which is crazy. So yeah, definitely really enjoy it. Yeah,
I guess a quick thing to ask would be like, what mode did you all play it on?
I played.
I started on.
You can go.
Oh, sorry. I started on the ray tracing performance just because I was like, I saw the 3 options. I'm like, okay, I know I'm not gonna do fidelity just because like, gotten so used to like 60 frames on the PS5, and it's been so great that I just don't think I can go back anymore. Like I'm all for graphics and graphics and amazing detail, but just 30 frames. Like once you try at 60 and go back to 30, it's like, man, this is like unplayable. So I started off with ray tracing performance because I was just talking to a lot of my friends that play on PC. They're like, yo, you have to do ray tracing. It's such an important feature. And I'm like, all right, yeah, because like it doesn't tell you the exact like resolution because it says like lower base resolution, right? But I wasn't sure like how far it would go, and then like when I found out it was like 1080p, I'm like, okay, why don't I try what's it called, just performance mode, which is like higher resolution without ray tracing. And honestly, like they all look good. They all look they all look insane. The amount of detail in each. But yeah, I think Charlie, it was you that mentioned, right? Wasn't it you that told me to do
Yeah, because
performance?
you like tweeted about like performance RT. So
Yeah, I
I
wasn't
played
sure.
I played the whole thing on just from what I've played so far, just on performance mode,
Mhm.
just because that's like running at 1440p and then upscaled to 4K. Obviously, you don't get the ray tracing, and I think the lighting's a little bit worse than like fidelity. But it still looks amazing.
It
Like
still
it's
looks
insane
amazing.
how
Yeah.
sharp it looks.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like if you didn't tell me, like I probably wouldn't even know the difference. It's like they all
Yeah.
look amazing.
Yeah, even the reflections just on the base mode look great because it's all like screen space reflections. It's just obviously it's not purely accurate to where lighting sources are and stuff, but it still looks great. I do want to try out Performance RT, so I don't know, Justin, does it have a New Game Plus mode?
Yeah, it does.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so I'll probably play a New Game Plus mode with Performance RT, because I was wondering that. I was like, I'm still like nowhere near maxing all the guns because there's so many guns. Like, how am I going to get everything?
Like it's impossible to. I don't like. Can you even
Yeah.
upgrade everything
Nah,
in one
probably
go?
Because
not.
I've maxed like 5 things at this point, but like there's no way I'm gonna have enough bolt
Yeah.
or not enough
Yeah,
bolts,
for
but
sure.
enough of those crystals to do it. So like yeah,
I
I think
only
I'll
max,
probably
like, 2
play.
guns.
Yeah, I'll probably end up playing like Performance RT on a second playthrough because I do really want to try out the ray tracing. It was just like I didn't want it to lock at 1080p on my TV, so.
So, like in the first level, I tried out all 3 modes. Like I just pretty much swapped. I pretty much do that instantly whenever I get a choice, right? And dude, I went to fidelity, and I was like, dude, this is horrible. Like I can't play this, because like yeah, you just go from 60 to 30. Just like especially with this game, like you just lose so much there, more than anything visually could do to me. So I instantly knew I had to pick between either performance RT or just art or just performance, right? And then I went between performance RT and performance looking, specifically looking at the resolution. But honestly, the upscale technology is like really good at Insomniac that I couldn't really make out terribly much. And then even like going on videos online, looking at comparisons, like there's definitely like small differences there. But if you're playing on like a 27-inch monitor like me and not like a big TV, yeah, I definitely took ray tracing for that. I also liked it the most on Spider-Man. It's just like the best of both worlds for me because you do have the upscaling technique, so the game still looks visually beautiful, but then you still have ray tracing and obviously you still have 60 FPS, so you kind of get like the essentials. I will probably try out maybe just performance in general, more on like a second playthrough. But yeah, I definitely found performance RT to be ideal for me. And yeah.
I honestly
I-
feel like if you're not looking for it, like really looking for it, like especially in gameplay moments, like it's like, is it that easy to tell?
There's like certain moments where there's like reflections, or like they feel like you're obviously like in a place where like there's like a lot of windows around, like at those the Zircon bar. That one's really good for it. But yeah, it's case in point. There are definitely like really good areas, but I think either way, however you play this game, play it in 60. Like there are people that don't care about frame rate. I think if you like play games quite a bit, you'll definitely notice the difference like night and day. But yeah, that's definitely, at least for me, it's always been between performance RT or performance. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people do like first playthrough, do like fidelity, and then second playthrough.
I mean, hey, people do whatever they want. Like, I think maybe
I know.
it's also, I'm speaking on my
I
experience,
personally
right?
couldn't.
So like, obviously if you have a 50-inch TV, maybe the 4K really does, change the game quite a bit. But for me on like a monitor, I'll go 60 FPS any day because that's where I see like literally the game change for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember trying out, so like when Miles Morales had the update for Performance RT, and I didn't like it on my TV personally, just because obviously it is 1080p, so it does look a little bit blurry when I play it on such a big TV. If I was playing it on my monitor or something, it probably wouldn't be too bad, because obviously it's a lot smaller and condensed. But when you're playing on a much bigger TV, I feel like you have to play on like the 4K modes just to get that really nice picture quality. But yeah, I mean, either way you play it, it's gonna look amazing. So
yeah, exactly. It's all whatever you have on you, TV wise or monitor. So yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about the game wise that we didn't already discuss?
I mean, I don't want to spoil what happens at the end, but
Yeah,
let's
do
just say
not.
I'm excited for what's next.
Oh shit. Okay.
okay.
It's definitely like I definitely want more Ratchet and Clank after this. Like.
Oh yeah, they're like the rats.
But are we gonna have to wait another decade before
that's a big
for a
question.
sequel?
I mean,
No, they're bought by
get another one out?
PlayStation. Like we definitely gotta get
You think
more.
they'd get another one out?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're like only in the first year in.
Yeah, you think?
I mean, dude, Insomniac pumped out already 2 games within like 1 year.
That's
We'll
true.
definitely get another
I'm
game.
sure they'll do Spider-Man 2 next, like probably like 2023, and then
Maybe like even if they do a VR game, like they're gonna go to Ratchet sometime this generation.
Yeah.
Like no doubt. And then I think it's already selling really well.
Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet VR, imagine.
all right, that's good. That's good. As I said, I'm excited for what they do next, cause just based on how they ended.
Yeah, I saw your tweet. It was kind of spoilery. But yeah.
Oh, was it?
I mean, I'm not gonna say the word that you used on it, but you're like, I can't wait to see the future for the, and then you said. Yeah.
Hey, we need to stop because I didn't see the tweet.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't see the tweet.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, but
just so quickly deletes his tweet.
right. But yeah, that has been our thoughts on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Yeah, I can't believe they worked on this in miles and somehow got both those out within such a short period of time. Both games in my eyes are like 8 and 9. Ratchet obviously being the higher one just because it's so good. It's like if this is what games are gonna look like on the PS5 and we're like not even a year in, like this and Demon Souls, like I can't wait to see like what the rest of the generation
that's the thing,
looks.
though. Like when's the next, what's gonna be like the next big?
Because that's the thing, like we're literally playing the most
exclusive,
next gen game right now. Like if you look at the Horizon, we
Yeah,
got like
'cause,
Horizon and God of
Horizon's
War.
not gonna be that.
Yeah.
Horizon's not gonna be that. God of War's not gonna be.
I think
that, so, like,
I think visually Horizon can be that, but it's not going to be as impressive tech wise, at least with like the SSD and stuff like that.
yeah,
And
it's
God
not
of
gonna,
War,
like change worlds.
like imagine if those pocket dimensions. Imagine if we got that with the God of War doors. Like that's what everyone wanted with the SSD. Whenever people talked about the SSD, I remember people like before the PS5 was announced, it's like, oh, imagine going to those different worlds in God of War through the doors, just like that. And yeah, it's disappointing. I think the next gen game, maybe it's like the Last of Us remake that Naughty Dog's working on, because I imagine that's probably a PS5 only. But yeah, that's the only one I could think of. I don't know what else could be. That's why we need a state of play, Sony. But yeah, Factions 2, always Factions 2. Yeah, can't go an episode of Critically Incorrect without mentioning Factions 2, which they're still hiring for. So yeah.
What are they doing?
Justin's still editing the trailer for Factions 2.
Still
It's an epic trailer indeed.
It's a long trailer, yeah.
It's an in-depth trailer, E3 demo. All right, everyone, that has been our thoughts on Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. If you've been playing it yourself, make sure to let us know in the comment section down below. Definitely looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. And yeah, with that being said, we'll see you next week for episode 31. Probably will be a dead, week. I imagine not a lot of gaming news will drop in the next week or so, but I'm sure we'll find some cool, interesting topics to discuss as always. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
See you later.